Congratulations, Liam, on Schindler's List.
Thank you very much.
It's a wonderful
Sheila.
new movie. Now, when I saw this, it made it much more tangible for me, the horrors of the Holocaust. Was it the same thing for you working on the film?
I have to admit, not. I guess because I was always aware of working with actors and they were wearing costumes. But we had people working on the film who were actual survivors, and it was usually when I was talking to them after we would finish shooting back in the hotel, and you'd actually see the numbers tattooed on their arms from that period that really kind of hit home for me, you know. And that's not to demean my process or Steven's process. I perhaps fought against feeling that because of the nature of the character I was playing, who had to be slightly aloof and a bit more upbeat, and I didn't want to fall into that thing of being depressed in this. So if I had a few moments of that sinking feeling, I just had to kind of switch off it, you know.
Now, I'm sure a lot of Germans at that time were appalled by what was happening within their country. But what was it about Oskar Schindler that actually made him spend all of his money and put all of his efforts into saving these people when other people wouldn't?
Yeah. I think essentially he and his wife, Emily, who was also a heroine, they were humane human beings, given Oscar's vices, and God knows he had a lot of them, and his virtues, but it was his vices as much as his virtues that actually saved these lives. I think he and Emily I know they were both disgusted with the whole rise of Nazism, and were determined from an early stage to put a spanner in the works of the Nazi machine. And how he chose to go about that makes him a hero, because he was living on a knife edge. He was winging every day as it happened, because this was a period when the world, morally and ethically, was turned upside down. But he and Emily kept a rigid sense of their own dignity and other people's dignity.
Do you think our society is in danger of ever falling into that trap again and there being another Holocaust? Or do you think we're beyond that now?
I don't think we're beyond it. I mean, well, one only has to look at this country, I think, with the attitudes prevailing about people dying of AIDS, certainly in the Balkans, the genocide that's occurring as we speak with the Muslims, and the parallels with what's happening there and what happened in the 30s and 40s are too close for comfort. We have Western governments who turned their backs, were aware of what was happening to the Jewish people in the 30s, turning their backs on them. It's happening now with the Muslims in the Balkans. Countries are turning a blind eye to it. So this film is absolutely, urgently necessary, I think.
Tell me a little bit about Steven Spielberg. He's one of the most respected directors in the business. Is his process that much different than anybody else's?
The actual process, perhaps not. What exemplifies Steven is that he's, I think he's perhaps one of the world's greatest cinematic storytellers. Working with him, he has a phenomenal energy. He has a phenomenal dynamo inside him as the days and weeks wore on, and it was a very tough 3-month shoot for everybody. His energy just increased, you know. He was like, you know, some days you just wanted to pull his battery out, but you had to catch up with him in order to pull it out, you know. He's quite phenomenal, and this story was very important to him. He had to tell it. He had to tell it, if only to get it out of his system, you know. And he's a director at the height of his storytelling powers.
Is it important for you?
And that's exciting. that was exciting to be
To work
around.
with someone like
Yeah,
that, right?
Yeah.
How important is it for you to win an Oscar during your career?
It's not important.
Not important at all?
No.
Would it be
it's
nice?
not. Of course it would. Of course it would be, it'd be wonderful. And that being said, I do admire and think it's necessary to have award ceremonies, not because there's someone who's good and someone who's better, but because it puts a focus on the film industry that eventually gets people to pay money to come and see movies, which keeps the industry alive.
Have you got another project you're working on right now that you can tell me about?
Nothing definite. I'm going to go back to Broadway next year and do a play called Miss Julie by Strindberg on Broadway. So film-wise, there's nothing definite.